Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News, where we explain marijuana laws so you can change them. I'm producer Lauren, and today the big stories. Leafly is going public. Half of New Jersey towns are poised to ban cannabis businesses. Wisconsin lawmakers unveiled their new legalization plan. And Dr. Ethan Russo has some thoughts on THC-O acetate. But first, drop us a like and a subscribe. It helps us grow as a channel and spread the good word of weed. And now, your co-hosts, Tom and Miggy.
Man, I love the intro.
That's right. Big thumbs up for Lauren putting together that new intro. It's so important that when you're doing these types of shows, you hit a particular algorithm. We're trying to do that. Yep.
Well, it was very professional. I felt so grown up for a minute. But
hey, you are grown up, dude.
What's up with the so stock news? Right?
Yes, big stock news. But is that our lead story?
It is.
Our lead story is in huge stock news. Leafly is going to go public.
Cannabis giant Leafly is going public through a SPAC merger. Wow.
Uh-oh, just like the parent company. You remember when we had the parent company's SPAC organizer on the show?
I think he had a good plan, though, right? They were flush with cash. So.
They were flush with cash, but if you have watched their stock price over the past 6 months, it has been cut from like 10 to 4. So it'll be interesting to see if this Leafly stock will go straight down. Now, I'm not sure if it's gonna, but Leafly has been around for a great many years.
Yeah, I mean, it was a website just like Weed Maps that we'll talk about later. But these two predominant, and again, back in the days when they were one of the first ones to create this almost like a B2B type platform, but yet they were also providing like the blogosphere. It was the early like influencer / news, like the beginnings of, and here we are. But yeah, so I'll go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the deal was valued at $532 million and expected to generate proceeds of up to $161 million. Includes Leafly's recent capital raise of $31.5 million from investors, including from Meridia Capital Holdings, and it's going to be listed on the Nasdaq, of course, with the symbol LFLY. Leafly.
The Leafly was founded in 2010 and has grown into a leading marketplace and resource. The company offers a deep library of content for consumers, including detailed information about strains, retailers, and current events. Chad is on here, and he was talking about how they were good and bad, and they are. I mean, it's a platform for people to learn. I saw one of their scientists was at one of our local when we could hang out in the before times.
There's plenty of before times coming after we're all. My nephew was just born, and my sister had COVID while she was pregnant. So I'm like, it's probably like one of the first humans that's out there that already has COVID antibodies, like day one. They're just born with them.
Oh yeah, he's that stuff that the future sci-fi is written about. He's like, I'm the one.
Sure you are, buddy.
But yeah, so.
It's a pretty interesting subscription-based platform. 7,800 brands for 4,600 retail subscribers used. So that's one of its incomes, is that they have this platform, so a dispensary could use them as marketing services. And then according to the report, the company is expected to see revenue hit $43 million in 2021 and $65 million in 2022. Remember, this was a company that was valued at $532 million, which means that's more than 10 times its cash flows. And that's just its top line revenue. We have no idea if it's losing money. So it's 10, 11 times its cash flows, which is obscene. It would be like a dispensary worth $50 million.
Well, like the cash flow, though, probably because it's the ups and downs, right? Because Leafly experienced a turbulent 2020 of layoffs and leadership changes.
No, it's because the math is wrong. That's all. Very often you have to realize that with these, and so the valuations, I'm getting one right now for my winners, my craft grow winners. And if you're out there and you have a craft grower's license, or you recently got a cannabis license and you're wondering what it's worth, you should order a 409A letter to get its opinion. And then after that, then you can actually see how you should take in investors, because you've have an opinion of its valuation. For example, Leafly's $532 million.
Well, in Leafly and Weed Maps at one time, we're the only game in town. But unbeknownst to most people, they can use Yelp if you're in a legal state. Like Yelp has that.
Really?
Yeah, they were at CannaCon here, and I had a conversation with them. They were like, yeah, if you're in a legal state, it's legal. And it's like cheaper to list on Yelp than it is on, because those cats, like a lot of people were saying they're expensive. It was all pay to play. Unfortunately, they were the gatekeepers.
Yep, and it appears that Leafly is going to continue to lean into its strategy of being more of an e-commerce online platform, so more tech heavy, and that is Yoko Miyashita. I do not know how to speak Japanese. I took the Korean instead, and when I see them, I'm like Maiichi. Yeah, that's not it. But he took over as the company's CEO in August of 2020 and has focused Leafly on building a better online shopping experience, signing up more dispensaries. And if you're a dispensary, marketing is tough because you can't. Like, there's laws that said what you can and can't do, but then also it's the IRC 280E. You can't like this is marketing for my law firm, which the government calls a tier 2 MRB. So I'm allowed to deduct this from the bottom line. I'm sorry, from the top line. I couldn't do this if I had a cannabis company. Like the costs on deducting the operations for the show. No, that would be you would have to pay taxes on that, and so that would just be booked as profit and disallowed, is what they call it, as a deduction.
Well, let's not forget that the social media is against anything cannabis. Anything marijuana. Like. As soon as you create an account, how many people have lost accounts, clone accounts, multiple accounts? People are talking about remember Mass Roots. I remember them. There's been plenty of platforms. Matter of fact, Mass Roots still they were one of the people that we talked about with Fresh Toast with JJ when I thought they had a really cool app. They had a really cool beginning. They raised a bunch of money, but then those guys checked out. Those guys took the money and had a good time.
Well, sometimes when the grind is the grind, and somebody comes up and they back a dump truck of $532 million to your door, and you're like, oh man, I could really go for about 3 years on a beach. Why? But Matt O'Brien tweeted the most valuable cannabis marketplaces are Leafly at $385 million, Dutchie at $1.7 billion, and Weedmaps at $2.31 billion US. These are the pipes. These are the Amazon of weed right now because they have the software that integrates with the online websites for the dispensaries, and it also, like for example, Dutchie and probably also Weedmaps and Leafly, they integrate with your inventory control system so that you can show the SKUs that are in stock on your store online. People can book it, and if they have a delivery endorsement, it'll show up to your house, or you can go pick it up.
Those are like just part of what they offer, both Leafly, Weedmaps. I think their biggest asset has been the content, being a media type thing.
There ain't no money in content.
No,
there's money in content, but then way less than you think. And so that's one of the reasons why what they're doing is they're retrofitting it to, because Dutchie doesn't make content. Dutchie does online e-commerce for dispensaries. Right
on. Yeah. No, I feel you. So like you said, the Amazons, and it's just, I think though the influence of being that because of the lack of ability to advertise, because it's unable to ads and.
I mean, you can do it, but imagine that, you're watching your margins. And so your advertisements are just coming straight out of your profits. Like that dollar of advertisement revenue that you did for your brand, as opposed to just listing your stuff on Leafly, which is advertising for your brand and advertising for your sales. But maybe it's like a free interface. Great, simply because then the Leafly company, are they going to get audited by IRC 280E? Because what did they do when they're doing those online sales and taking commission there?
Yeah, they're enabling a crime.
Is that going to be disallowed? Is that going to be subject to IRC 280E? We're waiting and watching for Leafly to be audited. That is going to be the noise.
I think Weedmaps the one to watch for audits, if you think about it, because they really already went through they got called out for having the black market.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if anybody's going to get paying right away, it's going to be the state of California going after Weedmaps. Not anybody else.
Yeah, well, it's going to be half of California going after Weedmaps, because the other half of California actually looks like half of New Jersey. Because in half of California, they still don't have the counties have legalized the cannabis business in their jurisdictions, and New Jersey looks like half of those towns are going to ban cannabis in their jurisdictions. So the August 21st deadline is 6 months in which cannabis operations must be opted out of, or else you will have them in your municipality. And therefore, almost half of the state's municipalities are facing the opt-out vote coming up. And if you live in New Jersey and your community is thinking about voting to opt out, you need to get involved. You need to go. You need to be heard. You need to tell them not to be stupid and don't opt out. They should have the business there for the community.
You're missing out on a chance of 2% tax and licensing fees. I mean, that's, money's where you got to get these people, right? Like it'll help the schools. It'll help the roads.
That's right. It'll help the schools, the roads, and then we can even fund addiction programs and first responders with it,
Yeah. Some officials say they fear cannabis businesses will adversely affect children. How?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why? Because their parents are going to have jobs instead of records? What? That doesn't sound like it adversely helps them. In Bergen County, 10 contiguous towns jointly decided to ban cannabis stores in part because they'd be located near residential neighborhoods and places of public accommodation frequented by the public, including children. In Union City, Mayor Brian Stack is stopping marijuana operations from opening his town, even though he is a state senator who also cast a yes vote for marijuana legalization. His hypocrisy is showing.
Dude, this is so crazy. Just the fact that the whole still people are saying because of the children bullshit. On my way to work this morning, was on a train, like I always do, and I came across a couple from Texas. They were visiting, and I was like, we just passed a weed shop, and I was like, hey, there's a weed shop if you guys ever want to get weed. And then the conversation kind of simmered, but then it came back. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of here for the weed. I mean, this is most Americans smoke cannabis. This is a non-issue, at least where I'm at in Seattle, right? Yeah. Like you find a spot and go get high, whatever, do what you think. But
the rule in Seattle is do not pass hash joints while walking over a sewer grate. Especially to me, I will drop them and they will fall to their death without being smoked. We missed a $30 hash joint that I failed to pick up with these two stupid fingers. But and then Jersey Shore. In Jersey Shore, one of the councilmen, because Jersey Shore is known for a terrible television series from MTV. One councilman said who was a medical marijuana patient said, opposed opening stores in his town, saying it would be a smoke fest on the beaches and boardwalk, as opposed to the drunk fest that it currently is. Yeah.
Wow. You really just didn't really deter me on that one. Right. Matter of fact, I'm thinking about trying to do some smokings out here because as the city's building up, we have a lot of construction going on. So, it gets harder to come to areas. But I think I can do like a pop-up event where 100 free joints, people show up and they can buy at the local area, kind of a commerce type thing.
That'd be interesting. But the Jersey Shore mayor said that residents, quote, didn't vote for 17-year-olds to become drug users. They didn't. I don't understand why I always sound like a hick whenever I'm being somebody who is anti-cannabis legalization. But he went on. They didn't vote for some overtaxed product so some MS-13 gangbanger can come in here and undercut the legal market. So interesting that he is using wildly inappropriate and just totally wrong-headed things to support his town's ban on cannabis establishments.
My brain hurts just from digesting what this person just said. So some MS-13 gangbanger can come in here and undercut what?
Undercut the highly taxed product.
Well, I'm saying
you legalized it with too high taxes, so we can't have the businesses come in here. And so the MS-13 gangbanger who is selling the weed uncarded to 17-year-olds, as opposed to the licensed dispensary where you have to present your medical card and also an ID or just your ID if you're going for adult use. When you realize that he's the mayor and he's also so stupid that we should call him the R word. And then when somebody says you can't use that word anymore, and you'd be like, no, he supports criminalization of cannabis. He'd be like, that is that. Yeah, that's okay then. He should know better.
We don't agree with that guy.
We don't agree with that guy.
Yeah, I just, and again, people listen to him and we're like, yeah, this makes sense. It's just fucking dumb, man. Yeah, the messaging from officials in many of the 240 towns that the State League of Municipalities estimates have banned cannabis business is simpler. They say they don't want to approve anything before the state's new cannabis regulatory commission. I mean, I guess that's one way to opt out.
That's one way to opt out, but the long path that is cannabis legalization almost really supports the dual nature of the licensing. And so how they do it in Michigan and how they do it in California, simply because if 50% of New Jersey opts out, but then they're going to have state issued licenses, those state issued licenses will only be in 50% of the state. And so when these other communities overturn their ban, then the state's going to be like, okay, now what do we do? Do we just do like these areas are now going to get them, or how are they going to make that available? But you know, when you have it dual license like you do in California, a new city will vote to legalize it, and then that city will have a round because there's no state cap. So the state caps and then city opt out screws everything up.
Jersey's very small too. Like you go through it, you'll blink. But I wonder how long until those townships realize they're missing out on money, tax revenue. Law enforcement can actually focus on real crime. Like there's a lot of benefits to why ending prohibition. It doesn't help anybody to keep this miserable law around. Like, show me just give me one reason why people belong in jail for a plant. Like, just tell me one. Just
seriously, yeah. Unless, of course, they use those plants to maliciously murder somebody, but then they're there for murder. They just use plants to accomplish it. You know, the plant in and of itself, like possession. And so like some people were not social equity applicants in Illinois because they were caught with 2 pounds of weed instead of 1 pound of weed. How come suddenly, because the pounds of weed that I have, that's still a crime to have that much weed? Like, I figured out how it can kill you. I just figured it out.
You
just gotta shoot put it into a cannon.
No. Well, so after harvest, right? After you taking the buds off, right? Now you got the stalk, the actual just stalk, right? Let that dry. You know, hopefully you have a good thick stalk. You know, you have a good healthy plant.
Right.
After it dries, trim all the branches, sharpen pointy stalk, sharpen in, get it good. Now stab.
So you have to make a shiv. So like that's how cannabis can kill. If you take the harvested stalk of it and turn it into a shiv. Nice.
I'm just saying facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
But the cities, approximately 60 towns have opted in that are simply writing their own rules. So there's going to be these 60 towns. And if now all the applications are going to be centralized on those 60 towns, which means that oh my goodness, I know what that means. Woo! 420 somewhere, everybody.
What up? Wow. It's not all bad, isn't there? Despite all these municipalities opting out, there'll be plenty of places to purchase cannabis. Several municipalities on board are New York, Atlantic City, Hoboken, Trenton, and Jersey City. Oh, the big cities?
Good. Shocking that the big cities want this, but then those little smaller cities where the Republican voters are, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it seems, right? See, there's no consistency in how this town's rural or suburban, Democrat or Republican are handling this. So, like, actually, they're all kind of varied. Jersey's all fucked up, dude.
Jersey's all fucked up. Snafu over there, I tell you.
I went to my high school. Was spelled, if you're Spanish, it's a bueno, right? Or buena. The people in Jersey, even though there's a heavy Puerto Rican population out there, they pronounce it Buna. Buna was my high school. Like it was just like, where did this work? Like, just bad enunciation. They make shit up as they go.
I don't like that, but yeah, I love that it is no longer making any sense, and you can't oversimplify it by saying the Democrats are going to be where it is and the Republicans are going to be where it's not, because the Democrats and Republicans, they're all over the place. For example, 2 liberal towns where the marijuana ballot initiative won by 84% of the vote, South Orange Park and Ashbury Park are opting out.
Oh no, Ashbury Park. Oh, that was a good place. Hey.
Well, not anymore.
But where are we at there?
In Patterson, the mayor envisioned as many as 36 cannabis businesses, bringing in an estimated $1.5 million in annual revenue. But after the opposition from school board members and leaders of the Muslim community, the city appears to ban all operations. Won't you think of the children and God?
Yeah, I mean that's what it always comes down to, right? The first establishment will be likely medical dispensaries that open up for 21 and older, as long as the business can prove to them to have enough. Or you just go through the New Jersey weed man way and just say,
just be like, well, just go down that corner over there.
Yeah.
Well, ask for me. Yeah.
I got less than whatever carry. So what are you gonna do? Give me a ticket? You're gonna take me in? Are we really gonna process me for?
Well, that's look, the Weed Man episode. If you haven't checked it out, smash some likes, leave us a comment, and then you're gonna get more of our videos in your feed. But go ahead and just search it. NJ Weedman, Cannabis Legalization News. He spit a lot of facts about operators in the legacy market. A lot of them, and I'm kind of surprised that one has not yet been flagged. Maybe it has by YouTube. However, one of the things that may play out in Jersey is kind of being, because I have the rumor mill because of what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Like cannabis all day, every day. Professionally, cannabis professionally. And so the rumor mill has medical resolution of a lawsuit. And so then the medical dispensaries will get out there, and then the numbers on that will go up. The revenues will go up. People will realize that shit is not really falling apart. Things are fine. Money, schools, fine. And then they might actually have the round of applications starting a little bit later, but we may get a draft of the regulations in 10 days on the 21st. Wow. So if that happens, then me and the guys will be like, okay, let's do this. And then we start working. And then you kind of monitor it and you see what the next iteration of those rules are. And when that application hits, you just have to go and you have to apply, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on a litigation that's going to take 2 years.
Seriously though, I wish that in the beginning when Washington State, I actually put my foot forward or invested like 10K into it. Like I've shed more money that I could have put into this time, into this into the beginning.
You heard about the dispo owner, right? How he spent $5,000. It was like $2,500 to apply and another $2,500 to do something else, and then he just won.
Yeah,
$5,000 lottery ticket. You don't have to hire a guy like me until after you win. It seems like that's what they're doing in Connecticut. And so, you could retain our firm and we'll help you get into the lottery there. But then after you win, they give you 12 months to get everything in order. That's something that New Jersey could do, but they say it's going to be a competitive application in the statute. So,
what, like Chicago? I mean, Illinois?
Yeah. So like $85,000 before my success fees.
And no transparency. So, yeah.
No transparency. And so pay up or get out.
Hey, you going on tour?
I'm going on tour. I'll be in Philly in 2 weeks.
Nice. What is the Cannabis Industrial Marketplace, my friend?
Cannabis Industrial Marketplace is having a BOGO day. I think if you buy one, you get one right now. And that was an email that I got. And so where did that email go?
So this is another great event. You show up, you network. Philadelphia, it's going to be a great place once they figure out legalization. The city of brotherly love.
Mm-hmm. Got to know that city of brotherly love. But the next one is Philly, and here is the link to the Philly one. Oh my gosh! Now that we're talking about links, one of the things that you guys that are watching might want to do is check out our description section, because now we have a bit.ly link that leads to our link tree so that you can get in touch with us on all of our social media channels. It's pretty sweet. And so if you also want some help on your cannabis business, we have that link tree that's there and you can fill out the form on it. And I just shared the link for the BOGO, buy one, get one free tickets. They end today. They have a coupon code there. I will be out in Philly for the tri-state. And I guess because Pennsylvania hasn't legalized it, we're going to include Connecticut as in tri-state. So it's Connecticut, New York, New Jersey.
Okay, right on. Yeah. I haven't been out there in years, man. I can't imagine what it looks like now. But it's funny, as we end the pandemic, as we're coming on the end, wrapping things up, getting better. We're talking about workforce. People want people to come home to work, but a study showed 15% of a workforce use weed while working from home in the LA Weekly. So would they be allowed to go back?
It depends on if they're working for the federal government. Sometimes the only way that you can smoke weed and work for the federal government is if you don't go into work.
Right. A new research suggests that 15% of Americans working from home during the pandemic were consuming marijuana. I think it's higher than that, but
But you're in Washington State. Now, if you were in Idaho, you'd think it's lower.
Oh, it'd be like a CBD check. or something. I don't know. The data of the research is based to come from a poll conducted by AmericanMarijuana.org. Various findings, in addition to the 15% remote employees saying they worked from home under the influence of marijuana at some point since March 2020. This included over 41% of remote employees under 30 saying they puffed on the clock.
Remote employees under 30 puffing on the clock.
Look, man, I'm not one to tell people what to do or not do. I'm just trying to live my life as an allegory, like I want to be the I'm not the rule, or I'm not the exception. I'm just the rule, right? Like I consume a lot of weed. Like when I have it, I'll smoke in the morning, smoking maybe in the afternoon, after like lunchtime, depending on what's going on, right? Like I know
what's going on. There is a high likelihood that I have a joint in my mouth.
Pretty much, and it hasn't affected my work effort because I still have that in mind. I always keep your priorities. This it just shows that people can function.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But they said 41% of remote employees under 30 said they puffed on the clock. And that is pretty big. That's like, 4159. That means if you see 3 people, at least one of them is in it. And if you see 10 people, there's 4. And then the younger demographics use a little bit less. 1 in 3 remote workers aged 30 to 49 use cannabis at work. And by work, I'm assuming they mean home. More veteran members were not that far behind at 30%, and they were willing to admit to indulging a little weed while they sailed towards their retirement years.
Hey, man, a little vape pen, like, while you're walking through your day, I can definitely toke. Sometimes I've taken a toke, and you're like, all right, I need a minute. Like, I probably shouldn't go talk to the boss right now. I don't
know about that because there's a gender breakdown in the study as well. It was more even a split between the men and the women. The poll found approximately 36.6% of men and 37.9% of women were likely to smoke at home from work. So women are more likely to be buzzed on that Zoom call that you're on.
Hey, man, I would imagine the breakdown across white and blue collar jobs is a bit more of a bummer. Well, 44.9% of white collar workers felt comfortable admitting their on the clock use. 21.6% of the blue collar workers did.
Go to college, kids, because then you could smoke weed at work.
I get the blue collar side of things, though. I'm a laborer, like that's what I've been doing,
but then they're more likely to be tested for drugs.
Well, and here's the thing, man. Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like as a laborer, as someone who's used my body in physicality to just make someone else money. And I get hurt and I know I smoked like that week, let alone that day. I don't say shit because I know there's a test involved at the end of this, and that's the unfortunate thing. As a worker, as a blue collar worker, you don't have your rights, and that's an unfortunate thing. Kind of like with the whole vaccination and military thing right now. Like, people want to support troop bullshit. But the thing is, when I was in the Navy, we fought for freedom. You don't have any. Like I've taken more shots than I really don't know, but at the same time, there's got to be a chain of command. There's got to be a thing that if you're gonna have something effective and be a force, you got to play by the rules and just do what you have to do. You're just
I'm assuming that they're underreporting. Then is what I'm assuming, and so like if they are, because like the white collar ones, they might feel a little bit more of that privilege. They might be like, oh, yeah, 44% of the time I'm smoking weed at work. But then the blue collar ones are more along the lines of like, no, I don't. I don't want no random tomorrow. I don't know who's calling me asking if I use weed at work. Fuck that. I'm not getting dropped for some reason when I report and clock in tomorrow.
Yep. No, it's exactly how it is, dude. I mean, like even when I was in the military, people were consuming all the time and you just don't, accidents happen all the time. Like I saw one guy, we're playing video games and he has a bunch of joints in his cigarette pocket, and this sergeant walks in and he's like, hey, can I get a cigarette? He tosses in the pack. Guy grabs a cigarette, doesn't say shit, but magically the next day we all had a base wide urinalysis. Like you don't trust people, man.
Surprise.
Seriously though, you're best off not saying. I mean, it's unfortunate though, right? You don't have rights, and you should.
Yeah, but the pandemic also helped fuel some demand rise. They said that 53% credited the pandemic was the first time they ever got high on the clock, probably because they were working from home.
and had no fear and able to experiment and realize, oh, this ain't that thing that they talked about. I feel okay. I feel better. Matter of fact, I'm not a threat to society.
Nope.
Well, you know who? Oh, go ahead.
Well, we got some pot stock news next.
Yeah, threat to society.
All right, let's do the pot stocks.
Vancouver.
Go for it. Yeah.
Vancouver pot promoter charged in SC securities fraud probe. Richmond News. This one, I think you would be. I talked about this lightly last week. This and the Leafly one, but I think you're a better source when it comes to. I sent this to Josh. She actually looked up this guy's stock, and it went from $17 to 17 cents. But the way this article was written, it broke it down to like different like entities, shadow companies. Like I was lost reading this thing, dude.
I don't know though, but like if your stock price goes from $17 to 17 cents, I really hope that you have been paid in put options, because then you're rich. Otherwise, you are broke. And if you are being paid in put options, do not buy the stock of that company, by the way. So anyway, this is a Vancouver-based marijuana stock promoter, and he has been charged with securities fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction by the United States Department of Justice in Boston. Following an investigation of 2 of his companies, Avatar Dillon previously established and operated marijuana growing facilities in Richmond and Delta with Emerald Health Therapeutics, whose board he chairs. And while he was establishing greenhouses in Canada between 2017 and 2020, the SEC was investigating Dillon for alleged fraudulent tech transactions. He allegedly concealed his ownership of millions of shares in his 2 companies, for which he served as the chairman of the board of directors, and then secretly directed the share sales, generating approximately $2.19 million of proceeds.
Dillon is alleged to have used a lawyer not named in the USAO to conceal ownership of shares of the Boston-based ARC Therapeutics and New Jersey-based OncoSec Medical Inc., 2 microcap biotechnology companies. He was chairman of the board. See what I'm talking about? Layers, man. That's 4 companies in one shot right now.
Yeah, I tell you, it seems like sometimes what you really need to be on a board of directors is the ability to just take everything. And then keep going.
Yeah, but it just boggles my mind how he was on these boards and this securities fraud. Like how they caught him, Dillon is alleged to have, or no, wrong one. Directors are supposed to disclose all the shares they own and have restrictions on their sale. Concealing the insider sales could have the effect of not negatively impacting the share price. And
yeah. Investigators with the FBI allege Dillon, as a lawyer, made false representations for millions of shares. And then watch out for lawyers. Some of them are not Eagle Scouts. The lawyer put those shares into 2 LLCs and then had another law firm provide a legal opinion based on an alleged misrepresentation to a broker that the shares could be deposited into brokerage accounts without restrictions. Upon their subsequent sale, the lawyer transferred the cash to suspected beneficiaries of Dillon. Now, that is one of the reasons why you do want to check your malpractice limitations. I am not saying that you should then layer your malpractice limitations according to your insurable risk, but it would not surprise me if this lawyer did that.
Yeah. From his allegedly hidden ARC Therapeutics share sales, Dillon allegedly generated $1.3 million. The FBI also alleges Dillon interfered with the SEC investigation. Furthermore, based on the evidence described herein, I have probable cause to believe that Dillon obstructed the SEC's Boston investigation by providing false and incomplete information regarding his beneficial interest in the shares, state the investigator. Interesting.
Yeah, man. You got to be careful when you're raising money. You got to comply with all those types of regulations. It'll catch up to you. Well, it can and it can't. Like, he could have still bled that company for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. But he could have done it legitimately.
Yeah. Well, it seems like I want to say rich people have problems, right?
Well, stealing is not a rich person's problem. I mean, like, people can just steal all the time. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are. But if you are wealthy and stealing, you have more money to protect yourself from getting caught.
Right. But to be on the board, to be in that position, to have that moment where you can do these effed up things, I mean, really, it's kind of rich people problems.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where sometimes, and this is, I can hear it. You can hear it in the streets. The litigation that's coming to not just Illinois, but also New Jersey, and then, of course, everywhere else that there is a limited cannabis market. Shareholder disputes, because suddenly you get the license, and that's when the money shows up, and that's when you're like, this was all mine. This was all mine. I have no idea why any of you people are saying that you own my company. I own all of this. 51%. Come on.
It sounds like what all those tech companies did, like during the early cannabis days, like, you know, the raising funds, and then this wasn't yours to begin with.
Yeah, but whatever, man. We got good news to report out of the Senate.
Yeah.
The Senate is going to let researchers study weed from dispensaries, according to the Marijuana Moment.
The U.S. Senate on Tuesday approved a massive infrastructure bill that includes provisions aiming to allowing researchers to study the actual marijuana that consumers are purchasing from a state legal dispensaries instead of having to use only government-grown cannabis. Nice. And you know, this same bill, they had some more provisions happen this morning. 2 weeks. Got 2 weeks and they can vote on it.
2 weeks. That would be fantastic. And we all hope that this thing passes, because then the actual research can be done. I mean, one of the excesses of the supply, because it only came from that place in Mississippi, that stunk, man. And now it's substantially easier because you can just go to your dispo and get yourself some medicine.
Well, not just that. This science, these studies that are going to be approved through the budget, right? That's all that's getting approved through this budget is all studies. You know, studies for driving, studies for probably, you know, food and health, whatever.
1 year at a time, man. 1 year at a time. I mean, so these studies are getting done this year. They'll be coming back next year. It'll be an election year. And you know that the Democrats are going to put that on the ballot hard. They're we got to win that Senate, because if we do that, then we'll be able to legalize weed. And the Republicans are going to say, we got to win that Senate, because then if we do that, we can legalize weed. And then you're like, wait, why don't you just do it now? Yeah,
seriously, though. But and at the same time, though, because these studies, I think, will be substantial in the end when it comes to actually laying that legislation, right? Because we got to always chase that boogeyman of like, what happens if everybody gets high at one time? Like whatever, you know.
All the potato chips will disappear. And everybody will be like, man, those are some good chips.
Right? No, but for real, though. The legislation also encourages states that have enacted legalization laws to educate people about impaired driving. See, that's what a separate amendment to more generally streamline research into marijuana and components like CBD by removing certain roadblocks on studies that was filed the last week by a bipartisan trio of senators was not added to the bill prior to passage, however. So, like, it's not specific CBD research. Like all these studies, though, they're talking about components of the cannabis. So, is there an echo? Do you hear me?
I can hear you great. I'm just going like, man, we got a lot of cannabis news. We're going to have to like stop making so many references and just, in other news, just go through it, you know?
Oh, just like line by line real quick?
Well, pretty much. But anyway, it looks like the Senate vote on infrastructure is going to contain these types of provisions. And hopefully we're going to have more cannabis research being done in your state. And moving on to shit I wasn't expecting.
Do we get a bumper for that? Nah. Damn it. I thought we had a bumper.
You weren't
we did.
You weren't expecting that bumper.
Legal U.S. marijuana is pouring into Mexico. It's pricey, popular, and has names such as Bubba Kush. Washington Post.
I love it. In news of reverse drug exporting, American weed is being sold in Mexico because Mexican weed still sucks. And now they're having names down there as opposed to just weed. They're going to be like Bubba Kush, which is a strain from like the 90s here. So Mexico is smoking our dank from 25 years ago.
And we're taking their Viagra. The most sought after marijuana being trafficked across the U.S.-Mexico border is now weed entering Mexico, not weed leaving. Cannabis sold legally in California is heading south illegally, dominating a booming boutique market across Mexico where buying and selling the drug is still outlawed. That's interesting, though.
I love it because remember how Mexico was the Chuck Schumer of legalization? They're like, you must do it. And then their Supreme Court would say, you have to legalize it. And then still it's not legal. And then they're just getting it imported from California.
Yeah, well, they're still making strides, right? They have some stuff pending, but I think that's probably what is helping expedite that, right? Like they're realizing, shit, we better get better at this product that we've been exporting for years illegally. And then now be competitive.
Yep.
That's good.
Yeah. The world's most famous cannabis strains with a new string of American names like Girl Scout Cookie and Bubba Kush can suddenly be purchased just north of the U.S.-Mexican border, including at outlet malls, walking distance from the Mexican territory. And then you bring that right on back. And evidently 60% of the weed that is being sold on the street in Mexico City is from the gray market of California.
One car was recently stopped entering Tijuana with 5,600 jars of gummies infused with THC that activated created marijuana. That's all. Gummies? You got busted with a shit ton of gummies?
We got an arbitrage opportunity. Oh yeah, come on. All those gummies in Mexico, they probably turned into one big puddle of goo, especially after they were busted and they turned off the air conditioning. So high-end strains of U.S. grown cannabis can cost up to $500 an ounce in Mexico, but they can buy it for $150 an ounce in California, and that is what we call an arbitrage opportunity.
Damn. For years, advocates of legalizing marijuana in Mexico have argued the country could establish an enormously profitable industry given its years of producing the drug illicitly. The Sinaloa cartel has reportedly been looking into establishing its own legal cannabis subsidiary in Mexico. Honestly, I'm surprised Mexican weed's not better than what it is, and they haven't focused on that.
Well, how good do you think that Tegrity weed's going to be?
Oh, it's all about Tegrity.
Tegrity weed.
We got any? Oh yeah.
Tegrity Farms cannabis brand may be launched by South Park team.
Can't wait, dude.
Yeah, but the South Park team of Trey Parker and Matt Stone recently got $900 million. That is 9 units with Viacom. And what are they going to do with the money? I think we're really, for the first time, going to bring Tegrity weed into real life. Stone told Bloomberg, but did not elaborate.
I think it should come with a little tally. That'd be the dopest thing, right?
Yeah, the Tally seal of approval. This was tested by Tally. Oh man, that's some good shit. I love that. Where he's testing it, and like he was in the corner, like all balled up with real red eyes. Yeah.
Well, I love how you got all like scientific in the beginning. He brought out some shit, was going to like do something, and then just that's it. That's your
But I love Tegrity Farms. I loved how in season 23. Randy was, of course, the farmer and bought himself a farm and moved them all to Tegrity Farms. He had to go to China to do business. He was responsible for the coronavirus and also its vaccine. It was ridiculous. And then he even lampooned Mad Men in one of the episodes.
Yeah, that was pretty great. You know, they took on the whole like their little mediocre commercial. But yeah, it's gonna be. I wonder. I hope it'll come to my state. I really do hope, because that's what it's gonna come down to. License, most likely California, though.
Well, right, and so they would have like the Tegrity special or something, you know, and yes, I mean you just make a hybrid, you make it tasty, so it's good, and then you call it whatever you want to call it from South Park, and then you get a licensing agreement for the genetics.
I want to see who the real life Randy Marsh will be.
I mean, that'd be great. But I bet we can find him in Denver.
Well, I'm just saying. Oh, yeah, I think they're in Colorado. Lauren was saying. But it'd be great to have like some dude dressed up like Randy Marsh and just a little like the wheat in his mouth, and yeah, that's all right. It's all about Tegrity. Come on in.
Yep, it's all about Tegrity. And
Tegrity,
yeah, go ahead.
I'll say. Speaking of Tegrity, Wisconsin lawmakers unveil new marijuana legalization bill.
All right. Shout out to the state that helped me get my law degree. And a trio of Wisconsin lawmakers traveled across the state into Illinois at a Sunnyside cannabis store in South Beloit. And those 3 Wisconsin Democrats were Senator Melissa Argod, Representative David Bowen, and Mark Spritzer. And they held an event outside of that dispensary. Their bill would legalize, tax, and regulate the sale of cannabis to adults 21 and older in Wisconsin and bring the state in line with neighbors Illinois and Michigan, where cannabis is already legal for adult use. Interesting that they wouldn't have any medical. That's fine, man. I don't care. Like if there's going to be an application round where I did this stuff, where I got licensed, I mean, I'm going to talk to my client, Nick, and be like, bro, let's go get some stuff in Wisconsin.
It just makes no sense to why these cats are even like looking at legalization right away. Because especially like Idaho, I showed a video last week where the bordering in Oregon, I forget the name of the town that's bordering, but a lot of traffic from Idaho. And so he went to Idaho and just did a whole video of like, these are great spots to smoke, like just, hey, how you doing? This little river. Hey, this, it's just crazy. There's more out-of-state plates like here. Like I think I told you before, when I was on my way out to go get my son last year, at the pot shop right at the border, these cats are getting more out-of-state business. Like there's retarded money coming in, and states are missing out on this. It's ridiculous.
It's true, man. And then not only that, talk about that money. 60% of the tax revenue is going to go to be reinvested in communities that have been impacted by the drug war. And there's some poor areas in Milwaukee that would probably get a lot of that money. And then the measure would also provide a path for expungement for people with past cannabis convictions and allow people to petition a judge for resentencing. Hopefully, it is going to be a entrepreneurial licensing scheme, but we'll have to see. And then the thing is, the Democrats, despite comprising 51% of the population in Wisconsin, comprise approximately 33% of the legislature because of Republican gerrymandering and redistricting.
Damn. What's commodity coming out of Wisconsin besides cheese?
Beer, cheese, beer, sausage.
Okay.
Yep.
Weed would be a great asset to that. I mean, that would be like an awesome place to hang out.
It's not great in February. And so, like, if you go up to the North Woods during the summer with the lakes, sure. But I'm sure when it turns into February, that far north, I mean, it's just like Seattle far north. It is dark where you live during winter.
Well, doesn't Wisconsin also have hard, like, snows?
Oh, yeah. And so you still have the dark that you have in Seattle, but frigid and a lot of snow.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
I'm good. I'll just take the dark. All right, let's do what we do after it's so far past the hour. We got a little name that strain for you. There it is.
Ooh, look at that guy. Girl. They're all
it's definitely a girl, Miggy. It is a girl. You should be able to tell that. And this girl, I think she looks purple. Or at least a little blue, you know.
A lot of
red hairs.
Yeah, red and just trichomes.
Oh, crystals. Yes.
Crystals.
Just lots of crystals. I bet this is hand trimmed. Look, you know why I say that?
Definitely.
Because look at the hairs. Like when you do a machine trim, the machine trim just butchers the hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, that's definitely a hand. We got a blue gelato. Nope. Going through. Nope. So far not. I wish it was scratch and sniff. God damn it.
No, it's not scratch and sniff, but it is one of. It just depends on, like, we can go on to the next story as you keep guessing, but this is a classic heirloom strain. I would say a classic heirloom strain
created by a classic grower,
a very famous grower, yes, and in the legacy market.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, THC-O acetate Q&A with Dr. Ethan Russo. Don't go there, hemp grower.
That's right. So let's get the beautiful nugget off. We'll go back. Nobody's guessed it yet. 2 letters, DJ. And so THC-O acetate Q&A with Dr. Ethan Russo. Don't go there. Fascinating story that came out of that, because something has been getting hyped in the hemp derivative market. That something is an analog known as THC-O acetate. And so the number of states have this Delta 8 THC that is out there, but now coming up in next place is this THC-O acetate, because they claim that it's actually quite a bit stronger than Delta 8, but is it made synthetically? This synthetic cannabinoid known as semi-synthetic cannabinoid known as THC-O acetate is one substance gaining attention. And cannabis writer Jolene Hansen interviewed Ethan Russo on the matter, and he said, well, let's do Jolene's question. Go ahead.
I was asking, are you familiar with this THC-O acetate? Like, I just learned about Delta 10 the other day.
I got a card of it.
You do?
I got a card of THC-O acetate. I haven't tried it, obviously.
Yeah.
But I do. I mean, it's purported to be a card of it. I guess it's got a QR code. I could check it out, but I don't know if I'm gonna, because so anyway, Jolene Hansen put it to Dr. Ethan Russo. The hemp industry is seeing a proliferation of a controversial cannabinoids, including THC-O acetate. Does this surprise you to see that coming? And then Dr. Russo said, more on the latter, all this nonsense about these synthetics I see as a byproduct of prohibition. If there were legalized of cannabis products with the appropriate regulation, I don't think any of it would be happening. The continued prohibition has basically been a catalyst to this kind of development of the products that people would like to think are legal, but clearly are not. THC-O acetate falls into that category.
But these are not synthetic cannabinoids. What up, Gummo? Good job. Hey, thanks, Chad.
Oh, yes. DJ Short. Blueberry. Let's before we delve into, because like Ethan Russo has a very cogent argument for why THC-O acetate may go too far from the process, and it is a process of derivation of these cannabinoids. And so with THC-O acetate, you may have had to have created THC and then acid catalyzed it into THC-O. Yeah, but this isn't like spinning CBD into delta 8. You're avoiding the THC, the delta 9. And so if they have to go into delta 9 THC before they can get into THC-O, there's that. Plus, it's all these types of acid catalyzations. And then how many chains down the link before you have crossed the line somewhere?
So you're saying because you have to get the THC mark first before the THC-O, you have that moment of legality pretty much?
Yeah, and so like this THC-O acetate, you know, it starts with THC, and so that's the product, and then the THC-O acetate is a semi-synthetic derivative or analog, and you do that through a chemical process using a very toxic chemical called acetic anhydride, and so you turn some of the delta 9 THC into THC-O acetate, and so you know. Then she asks him, well, why would somebody do this? And he goes, well, one reason is that it's reportedly 2 or 3 times more potent. And is that helpful? He's going to say no, because THC is what they call a weak partial agonist to the CB1 receptor. And therefore, this THC-O may have quite a bit more activation on the CB1 receptor. And then she asks, we're talking about people in the hemp industry producing THC-O acetate and making it because it's came from hemp and they're creating it from delta 8 THC. And so, and Ethan Russo goes, well, they could. Normally one could take the THC-O from delta 9 THC. So it could be that from a garden variety of cannabis that has THC in it. If they're making it from CBD, they would have to convert the CBD to THC first, which can be done in the presence of strong acids. But that process is not legal, despite the fact that people think that it is.
But they're doing it here in Washington. They're infusing delta 9 derived THC extracted from hemp into our recreational market, and it was approved by the regulating body. Like people can't just do shit without getting an approval first here. So they were trying to help the market by trying to bring more for the patients, but you know, it's a very controversial topic when it comes to like, you know, is it synthetic? Like it's still coming from the cannabis, you know, and that's where
it's one thing when you have Wallen process hemp extract, which comes from hemp, and so your CBD level is, you know, when you strip out the plant material, and so you take CBD flower that's USDA Farm Bill compliant, you know, it's 19% CBD and it's 0.3% delta 9 THC or total THC, let's say, or maybe it's got some CBG in there, something else, but you have those other cannabinoids. Now, to get to the THC-O from that, you'd have to go into THC, and then that's where you would have that problem because sure, you've gone hot, you're at 3%, but you're not at 100%. So you'd have to spin the CBD into THC, and then from the THC, go back into something that's not THC, and that's where you get the THC-O. And so Ethan Russo goes on, and then, you know, where was that wrinkle? Yeah. So he goes, now there's an additional wrinkle here. The process of making THC-O acetate is inherently dangerous. The acetate, the acetic anhydride, that's part of the process that is very flammable and potentially explosive. And so that's something that has to be done in a technical lab with a vacuum hood and no exposure to humans. So the inherent danger of the process to make it, the potential toxicity of the product, and its illegality, I got to recommend it that people try to forget about it. It's just not something people should be trying.
And that's when cannabis becomes dangerous, right? Because they're infusing toxic chemicals into this thing. They're trying to treat it and extract and manipulate these cannabinoids coming out, opposed to...
They're trying to manipulate the law, and they're using chemistry to do it, but then they're also that chemistry that they're doing to try to get into a legal loophole. First, it may just hit that roadblock where it's like, no, you first took the CBD and then you made it completely into THC. I'm like, well, we weren't done with the product yet, but you made it completely into THC. And so the DEA has opinion letters out there that says you're not allowed to do that. That the legality of their opinion is neither here nor there right now.
Right.
But then you have this layer. So then they go from the THC into the THC-O, and they have to do this acid catalyzation that's flammable. And so if you're just going to be doing that in an RV, you know.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Chad put out that paragraph, just encouraged a bunch of people. What's wrong with him?
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny how we as humans are chasing this like highest whatever, you know, this purest whatever. Because this morning I shared with our group in our group chat a 1978 commercial in High Times that was an isomer, you know, like a hash maker, you know, increase your THC potency, you know, turn your swag weed, probably when most weed at the time was shitty weed because it was being exported from Mexico. But you know, we've been chasing and manipulating this plant for a long time. It's just funny that proven time and time again, pure plant, 100%, just the plant itself, it's not going to ruin your day. But when you do all this crazy stuff with the chemicals and the mixing and the extracting, I mean, it's still not going to kill you as long as it's been made right. It's still a pure plant, but it's not, you know, the entourage effect is still a thing.
It absolutely is. But then it's, you know, he goes on, you know, he does say there might be some applications for THC-O acetate, but he recommends that hemp farmers just not go there. And I can kind of understand and appreciate the need for that. But Delta 8 keeps getting shut down. And so they're like, well, we have all this Delta 8 THC. I guess we could make some THC-O. But
then you got to find the market, right, to sell it in. Because that's, like I said, here in Washington, they're still trying to work it to where, and then again, there's an unfair advantage to hemp farmers out here. Because if you can turn 20 acres of hemp into Delta 9 without seed to sell processing, you're beating these guys that have these tier licenses and can only make an acre's worth of cannabis, and at the same time they have seed to sell and high tax rates against them. It's ridiculous.
Right. But then that's really cool that if I'm growing CBD in Washington State, I can spin it to THC and sell it to a dispo.
It's cool if you're not in the 502 market. I mean, there's an unfair advantage, and that's just one of the, you know, again, when you're wrapping your head around legalization and regulations,
and then like, because you have to comply with all the rules, it's one of the conditions. But then sometimes the rules make no sense, and so eventually you're like, I'm just trying to do my best here, buddy. What the hell? Yeah.
And again, that's all we're trying to do. That's the whole reason why this plant should be legal, because we just want to be law-abiding citizens. We just, like, I mean, I'm not the most perfect human being, you know, like there's speed limits and jaywalking and, you know, cutting you off in traffic. You know, I've done a lot of shitty things, but none of them I deserve to be in jail for. But this is the one thing that can disseminate my life, like ruin it, like the stigma, the just being associated a job again with the blue collar workers we were talking about earlier. There is something systemically bad in our system right now. And we have to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Shout out to that. And thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We'll see you on Sunday.